Shang Qinghua just didn't understand. Where was his agreed-upon, quote, parting near at hand? Why was it that it had been a whole month since the system released the return home function, and yet he was still idling his life away in the world of proud immortal demon Wei? Every time he poked open the system and faced the red and green yes and maybe next time button, he consistently ended up spacing out, then clicked the button on the right and closed the interface. Next time, on the top of next time, just a whole bushel of next times. Shang Qinghua blamed this on chronic procrastination. All that is evil. Thy name is procrastination. He didn't dare return to Changqiu Mountain for the time being. He didn't know if Mo Beijing was angry enough to go to Anding Peak to head him off. But half of his savings was stashed in a cave in Anding Peak, and the other half was in Mo Beijing's official residence on the northern border. So, this past month, he had actually been living frugally, dining on the wind and lodging under the open skies. If not for that bit of spiritual energy he still had to depend on, there wouldn't have been much difference between him and a common vagrant. After wandering for nearly a month, he unexpectedly ran into a certain master-disciple pair while they were enjoying a leisurely scenic tour around the world. After realizing who they were, Shang Qinghua couldn't resist rubbing his eyes. After half a minute, he finally confirmed that the young man in plain cotton clothes, still dignified of comportment while carrying a fishing rod and hefty basket of fish, was Luo Binghe. And after another half a minute, he confirmed that the other, who persisted in putting on his poser act of refined immortal airs to the very end, even while carrying boxes of food to deliver his own meal, was immortal Master Shen, Peak Lord Shen, Shen Qingqiu. You're here doing this cheerful, romantic cottagecore roleplay while you just left Mo Beijing alone in the demon realm and made me force myself to step up. How tragic my fate! Grumbling to himself was one thing, but how should he put it? Seeing these two still made him very happy, especially because he hadn't eaten a full meal for days. Don't complain about an immortal cultivator like him still caring about things like eating a full meal. The comment section had roasted him enough. He wasn't from Kuxing Peak. He didn't play around with Inedia. As their cottagecore life had been disturbed by someone for no good reason, Luo Binghe naturally had no good looks to bestow on Shang Qinghua. On Shen Qingqiu's behalf, he wouldn't show it on his face, but when, after exchanging a few greetings, Shen Qingqiu told him to go sit down inside, Bingge's expression still darkened. These two had, quite sentimentally, built a small bamboo house in a location between Jade Waters and Green Mountains. The longer Shang Qinghua sat, the more he felt that these two really were quite well off. As he lounged on a rattan chair, he said, "The house isn't bad." Shen Qingqiu waved his fan. "Why don't you consider who built it? Could it be bad?" Shang Qinghua thickened his face, shameless. "Your days truly have been much more comfortable than mine. Wouldn't it be possible to let me catch a whiff of Cucumber Bro's fortune and enjoy a touch of this carefree life for a while?" "It's most unfortunate, but you've come at a bad time. We were just about to eat," Shen Qingqiu said. "You're too kind. Arriving early can't beat arriving on time. I see I came at just the right one. I'll see how your food is." With that, he rose and walked to the door of what he suspected was the kitchen, where he lifted the curtain. Luo Binghe, wearing a light black robe, his sleeves rolled high and expression severe, was currently silently kneading dough. He was all grim concentration, with 2 patches of white on his face and a bit of flour on his eyelashes, like what he was pinching and pulling in his hands wasn't a ball of dough, but a scroll containing his grand ambitions to unite all the realms. No, Shan Qinghua felt like his guts were splitting open in dismay. The protagonist he had created, the Bingqiu who emanated pure tyranny as he conquered the multitudes of stallion male protagonists, he was kneading dough, making noodles. This really was an indescribable fright. Shan Qinghua silently retreated in defeat. He sat at the table and reached out to find a cup of tea to drink and drown that fright, but it was fished back by Shen Qingqiu. Mine. Shan Qinghua's heart was still palpitating. Do you have a second cup in this house? What's wrong with letting me use it? Shen Qingqiu pointed at the kitchen. You well know that there isn't a second cup, so it's also his. Shan Qinghua was silent. You'd dare to use it. If you would, I'll give it to you. Shan Qinghua's hands changed from pulling to pushing. Your honor can have it all to himself. Unfortunately, I cannot partake. Bingqiu continued to cook while the 2 chatted about this and that. After listening to Shan Qinghua relay the tale about the emergency at the Mobei clan ice fortress, Shen Qingqiu expressed his doubts. Really? Just like that? What reason would I have to trick you about this sort of thing? Shan Qinghua asked. And what do you mean just like that? My dignity was at stake. Of course I couldn't stay any longer. That's not wrong, per se, Shen Qingqiu thought, then said, but you never seemed like that sort of person. What sort of person? The kind who would care all that much about dignity, Shen Qingqiu said amiably. With the strength of airplane shooting towards the sky's resolve, the thickness of his face, and the tenacity of his vitality, he really hadn't seemed the sort to run after a single beating from Mobei Jun. After all, he had endured all those years before. How could he have suddenly become weak and sensitive and been overcome with emotion? Cucumber bro, Shan Qinghua said, embarrassed. Sure, I never hesitate to sell out my principles to get upvotes and tips. I only incidentally became Undine Peak Lord. But if you judge me for all that, you'd be the one in the wrong. Aren't those 2 things you've just cited quite compatible with the conduct I'm judging you for? Be a bit nicer to me, a bit gentler, okay? Cucumber bro, tell me, when would it be best for me to return to the modern world? You really want to return to the modern world? Shen Qingqiu asked. So, shooting airplane too often really is bad for your eyesight. You can't even see the crux of your own problems anymore. Wake up. You're just waiting for him to apologize, then scoop you back up and continue to lightly beat you 3 times a day. Before they had finished chatting, the meal was served. Luo Binghe carried over 2 bowls of noodles. White noodles and red broth, fresh and oily chopped green onion, topped off with a pile of tender slices of meat. The presentation was unspeakably exquisite. But Shan Qinghua wouldn't get grabby. Without even needing Bingqiu to open his mouth and say it, Shan Qinghua required only a seemingly nonchalant glance to understand that there was no portion for him. Shen Qingqiu sighed. See, I told you It was a bad time. After all, this was the food Bingqiu had made with his own hands. Not just anyone had the right to eat it. Shang Qinghua didn't have anything to say, and he shrank to the corner of the table to pitifully watch the pair across from him split their chopsticks. Later, when Shen Qingqiu finally couldn't stand to watch any more, he put a piece of meat in Luo Binghe's bowl while holding back a smile and finally lent him some mercy. Forget it. No more teasing. Your martial uncle has been pitiful enough recently. Don't bully him anymore. Luo Binghe put that piece of meat in his mouth and said, without lifting his head, "There's more in the pot." Shang Qinghua giddily went to the pot, shovel in hand. As he held the noodles, he slurped until his eyes were brimming with hot tears. For the first time, he had the deep-seated feeling that the most reliable thing in this world was indeed the friendship of Peerless Cucumber, his comrade from the same hometown. After he had mooched a meal of incomparably delicious noodles, Shang Qinghua was already pleased beyond his expectations, and it entirely did not occur to him to ask for lodging. What a joke! He did not want to eavesdrop through Bingqiu's wall. The quality of the sleep he'd get was one thing, but whether Bingqiu would cut off his ears and boil them with tomorrow's noodles was entirely another. But look at the sort of godly days Shen Jingqiu's living. Then look at the sort I am. Then again, constantly comparing yourself to others will drive you to an early grave. Really though, this is preposterous. Clearly, I'm the author. I'm this world's divine creator deity. Can't you all be a bit better to me? Love your authors. Protecting authors is everyone's responsibility. Shang Qinghua, savoring the lingering taste of the only bowl of noodles his son had ever made him while using a piece of grass to pick his teeth, walked down the small path between the mountains. He walked and walked until his foot suddenly slid out from beneath him. There was a ravine right next to the path, and Shang Qinghua had tossed his pitiful little sword who knew where long ago. If he fell down there, he wasn't flying back up. He burst out in a string of curses at himself. How can you slip when you're just walking on the road? You're not some female manga protagonist who comes with the supreme talent of tripping on flat ground. But he sat down to look. He found neither an obvious banana peel nor a small tree root, only a tiny puddle. However, that puddle was frozen over. The short weeds all around it were also covered with a faint layer of frost. Shang Qinghua frantically rolled and crawled over to the closest rock face, his back against it, as he sought out a bit of security. He had thought that spending too much time dilly-daddling and tempting death by not returning until Mobeijun came knocking was already the worst-case scenario. Then a certain person walked out from behind the craggy rocks and drooping vines, and Shang Qinghua finally discovered that things could be even worse. Well, well, look here. Who's this? Lin Guanjun said. Shang Qinghua laughed dryly. Ha! Right, who is this? Lin Guanjun patted the top of his head. Morbei nearly overturned the whole northern border looking for you. You sure know how to hide, huh? My lord is joking. Since when was I hiding? Shang Qinghua said. Right. I was also wondering. Where's there to hide from? You performed such a meritorious service at the Ice Fortress last we met, but Morbei didn't even have the chance to reward you. I can't figure it out. Why did you run to this nothing place in the middle of nowhere? Oh, that was nothing. Shang Qinghua repeatedly waved his hands. That was nothing to do with me. That was all Mobeijun relying on his own skill. Shang Qinghua was denying his role in fear that Lin Guanjun would assign him the greatest responsibility for his defeat at the ice fortress. But, unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Ling Guanjun's face suddenly changed and his tone turned harsh. Do you mean to say that without you, a lowly, shameless, treacherous Changchong mountain dog, to jump out and wreck all my good work halfway through, that damned youngster could have defeated me all by himself? Yes is wrong. No is also wrong. Shang Jinhua bemoaned this injustice to the skies. How could he? Mo Beijun defeated you, my lord, only because he relied on a sneak attack. Are you mocking me? Shang Jinhua couldn't immediately respond. When he thought about it, oh right, the one who had performed the first sneak attack had clearly been Ling Guanjun himself. The wind had blown his piss right back to him. No matter what he said, it was wrong. After clinging to people's thighs with a subservient smile for decades, Shang Jinhua had last encountered a character too difficult to flatter. He shut his mouth, a mournful look on his face. Ling Guanjun sneered. That little Morbei certainly never could have imagined I would just casually run into the person he expended all his energy on finding to no avail. So, I must use you well. My lord, if you want to catch me and use me to threaten Mo Beijing, it's completely useless, Shang Jinhua said hurriedly. I'll tell you the truth about why I ran away. In fact, at the fortress while he couldn't move, I couldn't resist beating him up. And you know that damn temper of his? With that kind of opportunity, it would be hard not to hit him, right? But after, there was nothing I could do. I was afraid he would retaliate, so I just ran. He's probably only looking for me because he wants to beat me in return. I don't have a mote of value in his eyes. At most, I'm a convenient attendant and punching bag. Ling Guanjun paused, then said impatiently, Why are you telling me all this? Do I look like the type of demon who'd do such a shameless thing? It's hard to say. You weren't exactly upstanding when you sneaked attack to Mo Beijing, Shang Jinhua thought, but said sincerely, You don't? Then do I look like the type of demon to be that patient? Ling Guanjun asked. That, I don't know. Then, my lord, how do you want to use me? How will I use you? Ling Guanjun laughed. By killing you to vent my anger. Was that so very hard to understand? Shang Jinhua froze. That's not necessary. You'd just be wasting your resources. My lord, you can probably use me to threaten Mo Beijing or whatever. What a pity it would be to simply kill me.